What villain was absolutely terrifying because they were right? Ken from the Bee Movie. I too would go absolutely berserk if a talking bee stole my girlfriend and gaslit me into thinking I was absolutely insane. Every time I hear the plot of this movie, I think it can't possibly be real. It gets crazier as you go on. Okay, so it's a movie about talking bees who have their own little society. Okay, that's cute. Then the main bee finds a human to become friends with. Still tracks. Then they start an interspecies romance, even though she's married in a relationship with another human. What? And then they work together to sue the human race over honey theft? And they win. And then it turns into an environmental apocalypse. What the frick? This really makes me want to watch this movie now, as I haven't seen it yet. But it sounds like a bunch of talking bees steal this dude's girlfriend and then blame him for being mad when they insert their terrible agenda to ruin the world into his life. What in the actual heck? Not a true villain, but Squidward. Damn, is SpongeBob an annoying neighbor? I'd hate him too. Squidward is a minimum wage worker in a monotonous day job with a boss who explicitly wants him to earn as little as possible and cuts costs everywhere, while having a musician's heart and playing his passion instrument to have some happiness and relaxing time for himself. He then proceeds to have his only time of peace and tranquility stolen from him by a loud, inconvenient neighbor who doesn't take care of his crap and makes fun of him for not being a pro at music. Most SpongeBob episodes I watch nowadays have me rooting for Squidward to just unalive those two morons before they induce a depression breakdown on our Squid Boy. Not to mention, when he gets off from work, his co-worker is next door, and when he goes to work, his neighbor is there. I'd unalive myself if I had to see my co-workers every single day after hours and on the weekend. Assuming you're in the US, don't join the military. Your first few years are full of living next to a bunch of your co-workers. It's even worse when over half of your neighbors bring work drama home with them, and you can't escape it when you're trying just to exist in your room. First of all, I never really thought about this when I watched SpongeBob. I haven't watched it since I was a lot younger, but I always just hated Squidward because he seemed like an arrogant prick. But I totally get why he seems that way now. Especially after the one commenter posted about the military living situation, because I actually dealt with that also. I had one roommate who I worked with, and he would come home after work and explain his whole day to me. I'm like, dude, I know, I was there. Why are you telling me this crap? And then proceed to talk about his wife, who ended up cheating on him, late into the night. Yeah, that was a total F my life period of time in my life. Otto from WALL-E. It was one of the only almost perfectly executed AI villains. He never really talks unless needed because he wasn't programmed to, has no malicious motives, and does everything efficiently. He's only bad because he's following his programming, which is to protect the humans and don't let them back to Earth, not out of malicious intent, but it was what he was programmed to do, and his directive isn't even incorrect. WALL-E finding that plant was like finding a four-leaf clover in a field of grain. The planet was nowhere near habitable, and they barely knew how to stand when they got back. In reality, you know nobody on that axiom is going to make it very far. I'm going to interject here and just say that apparently this commenter was getting a lot of hate and proceeded to respond to the criticism with the following comments. Some of you missed the main point of the original post and started arguments on how humans could survive. Me thinking they wouldn't make it far alone is only a theory, and I'm not saying it's 100% truth. I just want to say that contrary to popular belief, I did watch the end credits. It's a Pixar movie. Did you expect them to actually show civilization fail and die? I just had a theory on what would happen if they went with a more grim approach. They could still live, but they also had a chance they wouldn't. Without the end credits thrown in at the last second, it's really just an open-ended question, and wanted to share my theory. I really don't get why this dude was getting so much criticism in the comments. A lot of people were whining that the end credits actually show the humans coming back to Earth and living happily ever after. If you haven't seen the movie, basically humans destroy the planet, because frick the environment, I guess. The villain of the movie's sole purpose was to prevent them from coming back and destroying the environment again. That doesn't really seem like a terrible motive, to be honest, considering the fact that humans don't really learn from their mistakes often. One person said that the end credits were actually thrown in because the test audience for the movie preview didn't believe the humans coming back would actually be a good ending. I haven't seen this movie in ages, so please let me know if I'm totally wrong. Magneto is my favorite villain of all time. Every time his motives are brought to light, I get that, yeah, I kinda get it, feeling from him. One of the only good bits out of that god-awful excuse for a Phoenix movie, X3, was just Magneto giving a side-eye to the young mutants, asking for his tattoos. He just whips out the concentration camp number and straight up says, "No one is ever marking me again." Like that was a bad movie, but at least they got that attitude right. I always just felt bad for Magneto, to be honest. Like, I just get why he is the way that he is. I never really questioned why he did the things he did, even if they were wrong. Like the other person said, I just see what he does and I'm just like, yeah, I totally get why he acts like this. It's almost like I have pity and empathy for the guy, because he's been through so much crap. Screenslaver from The Incredibles 2. The monologue given during that movie regularly rings in my head. I'm sure the creepy bass robotic voice doesn't help either. Here it is. The screenslaver interrupts this program for an important announcement. Don't bother watching the rest. Elastigirl doesn't save the day. She only postpones her defeat. And while she postpones her defeat, you eat chips and watch her invert problems that you are too lazy to deal with. Superheroes are part of a brainless desire to replace true experience with simulation. You don't talk, you watch talk shows. You don't play games, you watch game shows. Travel, relationships, risk, every meaningful experience must be packaged and delivered to you to watch at a distance so that you can remain ever sheltered, ever passive, and ever ravenous consumers who can't free themselves to rise from their couches to break a sweat, never anticipating new life. You want superheroes to protect you and make yourselves ever more powerless in the process. Well, you tell yourselves you're being looked after, that you're inches from being served and your rights are being upheld, so that the system can keep stealing from you, smiling at you all the while. Go ahead, send your supers to stop me, grab your snacks, watch your screens, and see what happens. You are no longer in control. I am. Basically, what this monologue says is that you think everything will always be okay, and while you remain distracted, the powers that be will continue to steal from you. I'm so glad someone said this. If that monologue doesn't make you think about the current state of humanity, then I don't know what will. It's not as severe as the movie, but if you think about it, we all kind of just watch the world and the events from our televisions, computers and phones, while never really doing anything ourselves. We may comment or have opinions on certain things, but the majority of people will never take action on those opinions or beliefs because it forces us to leave our comfort zones. What an eye-opening answer from this comment. Not really sure if you can consider him a villain, but Peacemaker, when he went on a rant about Batman causing countless deaths because he refuses to kill supervillains. I get what he's saying, but at the same time, that puts the entirety of responsibility on Batman. I mean, he's a private citizen who's going out of his way to jail these guys and give them a chance to rehabilitate. It's not fair that he's doing Gotham this huge favor, and they can't even keep these guys secured. I'm always stunned that no cop has had their service weapon accidentally discharge into the back of the Joker's head. Then again, with how often heroes and villains come back from the dead, that isn't a great surprise. No, I totally get what the one commenter is saying about Gotham City's police being inept, but at the same time, if Batman knows the police are inept and cannot keep the villains in prison, then what other choice does he have besides killing them? Especially for the repeat offenders who constantly get out and just do the same dumb crap every time they get out. At some point, Batman has to be like, okay, I kinda have to kill you, dude, because you keep getting out and hurting innocent people. The Matrix's Agent Smith. I tried to classify your species. I realized that you're not actually mammals. Every mammal on this planet instinctively develops a natural equilibrium with their surrounding environment. But you humans do not. You move to another area, and you multiply until all natural resources are consumed. The only way you can survive is to spread to another area. There is another organism on this planet that follows the same pattern. Do you know what it is? A virus. Human beings are a disease, a cancer of this planet. This is incredibly accurate from the Matrix. That humans only seem to take from the world and never give back to it. Obviously, there are exceptions, but overall humans take more than they give. I'll also add that the reason for this is that humans have no natural predator. We are technically an apex predator and have no other mammal that is naturally inclined to kill and eat us. So, that either means we are a parasite, or I think it's possible that humans naturally were supposed to give back to the world and contribute to the ecosystem, but our own selfish desires have destroyed any notion of that ever happening. Maybe we were put here for our intelligence, but we used it in the wrong way. I wasn't really terrified of it, but N was right in my opinion when we're talking Pokemon. Dude thought getting these creatures and making them fight until one is knocked out wasn't that amazing of an idea, and it just made sense to the kid version of me. That being said, I think N is a really interesting character that can be interpreted in many different ways. Of all the main leaders of these games, I think N had the best argument. It wasn't perfect though. I like N a lot for his character development. I agree with him at the end. Real Pokemon mistreatment should not be tolerated, but a Pokemon trainer simply using Pokemon in battles does not qualify as mistreatment because the Pokemon is generally happy. The Pokemon like the trainers. That is the best you should wish for there. All in all, I wish Pokemon had good stories and characters like this again, to be honest. Yeah, I don't know about this one. I wouldn't really classify N as a villain, to be honest. I think he's more of an anti-hero. He doesn't have malicious, foundational motives and is trying to protect the species of Pokemon at the end of the day. The boss from Metal Gear Solid 3. I raised you. I loved you. I've given you weapons, taught you techniques, endowed you with knowledge. There is nothing more for me to give you. All that's left for you to take is my life, by your own hand. One must die and one must live. No victory, no defeat. The survivor will carry on the fight. It is our destiny. The one who survives will inherit the title of boss, and the one who inherits the title of boss will face an existence of endless battle. Scar from the Lion King. He only wanted to be king because he was a second male lion in the pride, which means he is automatically not getting much food and also beaten into submission regularly if he wants to stay in the pride. Aside from that, he isn't allowed to mate at all. Only the king gets that. Can we really blame him? Also, he tried to eat Zazu and got in trouble. He says it's natural, but then Zazu says let's make him into a rug. Then in freaking Hercules he was a freaking rug. This one is actually the only one that I think I never would have thought of. He's basically a second child that never gets any attention and eventually lashes out at being treated poorly his entire life. Honestly, if Mufasa were actually a good king, he could have prevented this from happening by treating Scar better. But that still doesn't mean that this would have prevented Scar from being jealous of Simba's birth. I think he still would have tried to overthrow Mufasa, even if he was treated better.